I'm Beverly, and I'm on the witness stand.
Okay, we are going to get started with the closing arguments in the honor killing trial yesterday. Uh, the first thing I want to talk about is the judge took about 40-ish minutes to do the jury instruction, which I was a little surprised about because I thought that the closing arguments were made and then the jury instructions. I don't know if that's just something that's different. Maybe the judge wants it that way or whatever. I'm not sure, but I was expecting it to go differently. But it's okay. I guess in a way, it worked really well because the jury sort of knew what was expected of them. And then as they gave the closing comments, then they could apply it. So I think it was a good idea to do it that way. The Not the prosecution, but the judge started out with 49 instructions. She said it'd take about 40 minutes, and it did just that, maybe even a little less. The closing arguments began with prosecutor Heather Stone. I have to say, I was a little disappointed in the beginning because it felt like she was taking the jury instructions and going right down through them just like the judge did, with maybe a little bit of here's how you can apply this, here's how you can apply this. I found it very boring, but it didn't stay that way. So she went through her first part. Now, the way this goes is the prosecution, the defense, the prosecution. When I say defense twice, it's because Eson, the father's defense, went first. The mother, Zara's defense, went second. And then you get the final closing from the prosecution. Okay, overall themes from the prosecution. You've got a cultural context. They didn't broadly condemn the Iraqi culture. It wasn't anything like that. I don't know enough about the Iraqi culture to be able to say if this is extreme, maybe extreme to us in America, but I don't know that it's extreme to them. I'm leaning towards saying it's not. What they did do, they could not talk about honor killings, arranged marriages. They couldn't talk about any of that stuff, but they got around it by saying stuff like they made, like Stone was saying, they made an irreversible decision. Well, the jury's going to start. And then there was a plan, and it ended with her gone forever. Jury's thinking. They did talk about her going to visit Iraq, but that had to give you the inclination that why would she be going to Iraq and then gone forever? So the mind of the juror had to be percolating. So they kind of got around things that way. And then it was they really worked on the intent of the whole event, incident, by saying that they emphasize planning, coordination, and the pattern of past threats. In a previous video, I mentioned about the school counselor and having made comments about what Fatima felt like they were going to do. They were able to reinforce the fact that there were some prior threats that made Fatima say, I'm not going to Iraq. Okay. So instead of saying that she was dishonoring, they would say things like, and these are some direct quotes, she wasn't behaving the way they expected. They were not going to allow her to live this way. There was no plan to return her. If you didn't know what was happening, those would be very frank statements giving you pause, I think. The word freedom came up a lot in reference to the daughter's decision to stay in the United States. And the destination, which was Iraq, was noted but never framed through the lens of an arranged marriage. So even though they didn't say it, they cleverly enough, they got this information in. So even if it hadn't been for that school counselor, I think the jury would have figured something out. The jurors, they were able to connect the dots between what the family's belief system and then the actions of the prosecution without really even trying to label it. So I think they got through there. Stone prosecution said that they weren't claiming premeditated intent to kill at the outset, but they argued that during the incident that Ihsan's there was a shift in his mindset. And at that point was when they are claiming that he began to choke his daughter, with the intent of trying to kill her. They also said that Zara, which, I've said before, okay, I'll go back to their appearances in a second. Zara did nothing to stop him, but she was more concerned over the condition of her husband and not really wanting to know the condition of her daughter. So she didn't stop him. She didn't try to stop him from doing it as he strangled her. And so Stone indicated that, they both contributed to this. And she said over and over and over, she said, you cannot strangle your child to restrain them. She painted the act as it was crossing the threshold of any kind of benign discipline into a threatening and dangerous conduct on the behalf of the parents. Eric Kading, the defense for Ihsan, I really made no bones about what I thought of Ihsan and his attorney. I think that maybe both Ihsan and Zara's attorneys were court appointed because God only knows if the ending of this trial didn't prove it. I don't know what could have. Kading, Ihsan, the father's attorney, I wrote these notes. I went back and I cleaned up my notes a little bit and I read them a few times because I can't even believe I'm getting ready to tell you this. Kading said that Ihsan wasn't trying to choke his daughter. That was not what you were seeing at all. He zoomed in on a 53-second segment of video footage trying to get the jurors to observe the context carefully, particularly Isaiah hitting Ihsan first, and then Isaiah having caused a chaotic scene. So his version of events were that Isaiah and he got one of his friends, Noah, to really be on the lookout for anything happening. And then when they saw Ihsan's truck, Isaiah made some comment to Noah about, okay, watch, something might be going down, paraphrasing. And then it did. So Kading said that Isaiah tried to interfere when the father was having a conversation with his daughter and trying to get his runaway daughter to come back home because she was a wayward child. He was trying to get her to come back, and he gently took her arm until Isaiah ran in trying to take control of the situation. hit Ethan, who then somehow tried to get hold of his daughter to pull her away from this maniac. My words, not theirs. And it just accidentally went around her neck. So he wasn't trying to hurt Fatima. He was trying to hold on to her to keep her safe from Isaiah, who began then beating down on him, knocked him down on top of Fatima, not the situation that we saw it as him holding Fatima in a chokehold, but that it was all Isaiah's making, that Isan had hold of Fatima, choking her, not realizing that he was choking her, but that he was trying to hold her from getting hurt. Was the most ridiculous, bizarre thing I have ever seen. Okay, then he framed the whole case as a misinterpreted struggle, saying that Isan was reacting but not attacking with intent to kill. The video evidence, he said, is the most reliable witness in the room. I agree with that. As he said, quote, "The problem is, as we found, the victim is what we would like to call an unreliable narrator. She tells stories. She doesn't always tell the truth. So now it's victim blaming. Happens all the time, but this is what they did. They used the stereotypical victim blaming. Describing the chaotic confrontation, Kading said, quote, Mr. Ali is on his stomach, being dragged by somebody he doesn't know, punched by somebody he doesn't know. He falls to the ground with his daughter with him, and he's hanging on." Yep. And then we've got Tim Leary, the defense for Zara. Leary says that Zara arrived after the initial violence had taken place. And I love that he said violence, because it was violent, but just not the way that these two defense attorneys are bringing it. He said she was there to de-escalate, not participate in the assault. He said that visuals do not support the idea that she held her daughter to help Isan attack. I don't believe that either. I mean, I don't believe she held her. I believe that the holding part came after Isan was detained by the bystanders. He said that he wanted jurors not to view Zara as a villain simply because her daughter later accused her, calling for jurors to imagine, now get this, to imagine the same facts about a different cultural or community figure, like a PTA mom, to test your bias. That similarity test demands acquittal, he said. Rack my brain. I cannot figure how we relate this to a PTA mom. I didn't understand it then. I don't understand it now. Don't know if I'll ever be able to understand it. But please, if you can get the reference, please enlighten me in the comments, because we have some great comments that's been going back and forth with this trial. I'm just so pleased that there's such an interest and such great questions and comments. It's just unbelievable. Okay, so his argument, again, reporters centering on jurors to imagine the same facts applied to someone from their community, such as a PTA mom. He said that she arrived after the violence and was not there to participate. Okay, so then we go to, I want to go back to Stone. Okay, as I said before, that she acknowledged that the state wasn't claiming a premeditated intent to kill at the onset, but argued that in the midst of it, Isan then shifted, and that is when he decided he was going to choke Fatima. I mean, that's up to each one of us, but I sure agree with that statement. She emphasized that Zara did nothing to stop Isan, but she said that Zara held the daughter not at the same time, but after the father's incident, then held the daughter with the arms around Fatima's neck, not the other way around. So she is saying that both parents participated, and she hammered that home again about you can't strangle your child to restrain them. Let's see, getting back to the final. You remember we had Stone, the prosecutor, Kading, Leary, the defense, and then we went back to Stone. So after the defense did their thing, then Stone, being prosecution, because they have the burden of proof, was able to go back and stress parts of their closing and parts or to rebut some of the defense. Stone closed by stressing the turning point when Isan decided to choke his daughter, and it gets past him reacting. Let me see if I can say this. It gets him past the reasons or reaction into criminal intent. So it didn't start out being that way. It shifted mid-incident. She reminded jurors that Zara did not act to protect her child, focusing instead on the father. I don't know if you remember from some testimony that after the incident, she kept saying things like, stop hitting or stop hurting my husband. He's my husband. Help my husband. And then she would say, I want to talk to my daughter, but she would not. And that was when she was trying to get into the school. That at no point did she say, how is my daughter? When she was told that EMS was coming for the daughter, she still didn't ask about that. She said she wanted to talk to the daughter. So I'm not sure how we're going to relay any of this to a PTA. Yeah, I just can't even get past that. If you guys could just kind of give me an idea about what you think that meant. I don't get it. I just don't get it. But the fact that you didn't care to find out how your daughter was, you didn't care enough about your child to have had all of these restraining orders and trespasses against you that you just flew in the face of. You were just going to do what you wanted to do, and that was the end of it. You had no care or concern for what was legal here in the United States, and you didn't care about the welfare of your child. You cared about the welfare of what was happening in your family, bringing dishonor to your family. That's all she cared about. Prosecutor Stone, in some of her direct comments, she said, Fatima, she was referencing, she had real fears about going back to Iraq. It was a one-way ticket. There was no intent or explanation or indication of return. So Zara knew the deal. She knew what was going on. On the choking incident, she said the kids are screaming. She can't breathe. He's killing her. Remember that? And he continues to hold that restraint, his arm around her, choking her out while she fights and struggles. And then apparently there's a seizure. Now, there was no video evidence of that seizure, but based on the witness testimony all around, lots of the witness testimony describing what they were seeing, medical personnel determined that to be seizing. But then she goes limp and she's unconscious. The body just goes limp. There's nothing else. The life has been taken out of them. The oxygen is gone. And then on the duration of struggle, now listen to this. She talked about that Fatima stopped struggling for approximately 15 to 18 seconds prior, and then she's unconscious, and Ihsan continues to strangle her for another 15 to 18 seconds. She pressed the idea that once Ihsan began choking his daughter, what began in chaos became decisive intent, continuing for another 15 to 18 seconds while she was unconscious. She said, again, Zara's role by pointing out that she did nothing to stop it. It was a powerful part of the state's testimony or argument to say that both parents shared responsibility. And in essence, Stone said he continued even after she lost consciousness and she did nothing to intervene. So pressing that home. Then here's what she did that I thought was probably one of the more effective tactics that she used. She said, and she used this because it was not accidental that she did this, because it was so good. It was very calculated and very deliberate. She said in the courtroom, silence can sometimes speak louder than words. And then she paused and she had the jury to sit, the whole courtroom, everybody to sit in silence for 45 seconds. She timed it. And everybody sat there thinking about, this is how long Ihsan strangled his daughter, Fatima. It was to drive home the length and the brutality of the act in real time. You know, we've always said, like, oh, I can take the pain. I could take the pain for 15 seconds until you're actually taking pain for 15 seconds. And then you realize just how long that 15 seconds is. Seems like nothing until you're actually trying to endure something through 15 seconds. Well, this was 45 seconds, and she drove it home. She wanted them to know what it had to have felt to Fatima to endure that. That was quite effective, I think. And we were talking about, I had said earlier, something in reference to the way they looked. All the way through this trial, I felt like Ihsan had the look of the devil, like nobody can touch me. It was a menacing kind of look. Maybe I am putting my personal spin on it. You can judge for yourself, but that's how I felt, is that he had a menacing look, especially when Isaiah was testifying. Yesterday, I felt like it was a little bit of worry, concern. Maybe I'm reading too much into that too, but there was a little bit more wrinkling of the brow here that was not so much of a scowl. And I even saw Zara talk to the person sitting beside her that I thought might be an interpreter. I don't know, but it was somebody with them. Maybe that the legal analyst was saying something to her, but they were smiling back and forth to each other. So that's the first time I've actually seen Zara smile. Today, or yesterday before they left, the judge instructed the jury that the only thing they had left to do yesterday was to pick I don't know what she called it. It wasn't a jury foreman, but it was something like that. And that's what it was. And then what time they were supposed to come back today. And I'll look. And again, I'm going to be watching it all day. So I will go in. I'm going to get this video up, and then I will go in and update you on anything, any questions or anything in my little shorts. So just keep watching, okay? And until then, you can step off the witness stand.
I'm Beverly, and I'm on the witness stand.